Hello again. Welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. I'm Eric Sfiligoj, editor of CropLife and CropLife Iron, here again with Amy Asmus from Asmus Farm Supply. Amy, how you doing today?
I am doing great.
The first thing I want to bring up, I know this is something I think I and most of the viewers maybe have been waiting for a couple of years now, but there seems to be some talk, some scuttlebutt going on in DC regarding a farm bill, a new farm bill, or an extent, a revised farm bill. So again, I've been reading about this. I know some folks are happy with the fact that there's progress. Other folks are saying that it's progress, but there needs to be more in there, more done for the benefit of the growers and ag retailers. But you tell me, Amy, what are you hearing on the prospects for a farm bill here in 2026?
The Farm Bill well, so GT Thompson, who is the House Ag Committee chairman, has released last week his version of the 2026 Farm Bill into the House. Now, the House has scheduled the Ag Committee to read that, mark it up, and move something forward starting Monday, the 23rd. So I've heard a timeline that they hope to get it out by the 25th. I think that's maybe a little optimistic, but we'll see. If they do get it out of committee, then we have heard that there will be space on the floor for the House to look at it and to vote on it. So they will get it to the floor. In 2024, it had a hard time getting to the floor and getting time on it, but I have heard that if it comes out of committee, it will have time on the floor. So of course, back to my days of Schoolhouse Rock and what it takes to get a bill to be a law. So the House has to do their version and they kick it out, and then the full House has to agree and vote on that. Well, at the same time, I think the Senate's probably working on their own version. They may pick up the House's version. We'll see. But most likely they're working on their own version. Again, that has to get out of committee and has to be voted on the floor. Now, if they don't agree to the House's version, then they need to have a committee that gets together and does a consensus on it.
Yeah,
Once
reconciliation. Yeah.
Yep, the reconciliation. Once they get a consensus on that, then that will move forward, and of course, it goes to the president's desk, and he has said he supports ag, and will sign it. So, it still has a ways to go, but it has started the progress. So,
And yeah,
again, we'll look at that trail to reality, versus the intention, but, it started. So I have a question for you, Eric. They're referring to this as Farm Bill 2.0. Do you know why they're calling it Farm Bill 2.0?
I must confess, I do not know why it is Farm Bill 2.0, but I suppose it means it's new or different, but you tell me.
So we can all remember the Working Families Tax Cuts bill. We called it the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Mhm.
And when that was passed, that contained a lot of funding stuff that is usually contained in the Farm Bill.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so that extended the funding for a lot of our programs and really gave those programs the ability to go on. So people in committees are calling that Farm Bill 1.0
Ah, okay.
because that worked on the funding. And so Farm Bill 2.0 that's coming out, even though funding is in place for a lot of these things, Farm Bill 2.0 addresses some of the policy changes that need to be made. So this one will be more focused around policy changes, whereas the One Big Beautiful Bill did a lot of the funding that we needed for the Farm Bill. So just a little fun fact for the day, why it's called Farm Bill 2.0. But it is definitely something we should be watching in the next month or two. I think we'll get a lot of movement on it and we'll kind of know its fate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I know next week I'll be at the 2026 Commodity Classic in San Antonio, Texas, And I think Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Ag, will be one of the speakers there. So I would be very surprised if in her talk she doesn't bring up Farm Bill 2.0 and talk about the possible progress on the bill and what it might mean for the marketplace. So viewers, if you're interested, I'll try to get a video clip of that and share it with you in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, speaking of bills and things to watch, I know one of the things I'm starting to hear a little bit more about. I know I was at the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association meeting back in mid-January, and people were talking about the U.S. Mexico Canada Agreement, USMCA, and one of the speakers at that event mentioned that that this piece of agreement, this trilateral agreement between the three countries, was coming up for renewal in July, and that it might have an impact potentially on trade, and in particular, they pointed out potash might be something to keep an eye on. But what are you hearing about a USMCA and what might happen come July?
So, of course, the Senate Finance Committee just held hearings on USMCA. And I think from what I've heard out of those hearings, we've got pretty good bipartisan support. It's something that, of course, they want to move forward and have talks about. I do think it's going to be interesting. Things that have happened in the last few years that may have strained some of our trade agreements with Canada and Mexico, I think will be part of the conversations as well. So, again, it will be something to look forward to see where they land on a consensus for.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I know that your friend and mine, Darren Kopic, the head of the Agricultural Retailers Association, put out a statement where he was kind of spelling out that, these renewal talks, if they agree to renew, all three countries are in agreement that the USMCA would be renewed for 16 years, which is a good amount of time. But if they cannot come to an agreement, then it becomes like a yearly conference debate, basically, to see if the 3 countries want to renew. So, and his statement was the farmers want certainty, and obviously 16 years is better than 1, so
Right, and we do need certainty, and we do need to solidify some of our trade agreements to ensure the market has a future as well.
very, very
So it
good.
will be interesting conversations and something to watch.
Yes, things to watch, and yes, and then as something else to keep an eye on, of course, this is something we talked about the last time you were on. I have to give you all the props in the world because we talked about the possibility of dicamba over the top getting reapproved, reauthorized by the EPA. And, I told you I had heard conflicting stories on that, and you're like, no, I think it's imminent. And lo and behold, I think the day our video actually started airing on the website was the day that EPA did reauthorize dicamba. And I know I talked about that with our guest speaker last week, Beck Barnes from Cotton Grower Magazine. But Amy, since you were absolutely at 100% correct, what could you add to the dicamba debate?
So I was glad. So when they approved the label on Friday evening, I'm going, "What did I say? Is it right? Can I compare it? Was I close or did I make some mistakes here?" Um, so this is being filmed on Thursday and things change day by day
Right.
with dicamba. So it has a federal label. The only state labels that I have seen so far, that doesn't mean they're not out there, that I've seen so far are Illinois and Minnesota. And those 2 states have put on more restrictive um, compliances in order to apply it over the top. And so it is so important for all the listeners to check with their state and check and make sure that you are following the state restrictions and the federal label. I expect more states to approve their labels here really quickly, possibly before this airs. But those are the 2 so far that have restricted even further some of the application requirements. So
Okay.
keep an eye out for what your state's coming out. I did talk to some of our reps.
Mhm.
So, there's 3 companies that will have products,
Yep.
coming out. And so I asked them a little bit about inventory because we worry a little bit about that. Of course, the cotton growers are all excited about dicamba. I would say almost more excited than the soybean growers are.
Yep.
And of course, they're in the field before we are. So I asked about availability of stocks, and all 3 companies were fairly certain that they should have enough to cover demand for this year. So again, I could be wrong, and we'll see the road to reality versus intentions. But right now, what we're hearing is there shouldn't be any allocations of products, and it should be available across all geographies and not just used up in the south so that we don't have anything up in the north. So that's something if they do decide to go with the dicamba program, there should be enough product availability to use this growing season.
Yeah, interesting. I know I'll be talking to you mentioned the 3 companies, Bayer, Syngenta, and EASF. I know I'll be talking to all those companies next week at the Commodity Classic, and you've now given me another topic of conversation. I will bring up with them dicamba availability and supply, and we'll see what they say, and I'll report in a future video on what I heard while I was there.
Awesome. That will be great. I will predict that they will probably lean more to bulk delivery than package delivery just because of the logistics of getting it packaged and getting it out to the countryside. So, bulk, version will probably be more available than package, but I believe they'll have enough of both.
Okay.
So
Well, again, like I say, we'll talk about that in a future video. Something else to watch. So, speaking of things to watch, I know you and myself will actually both be in early March at what is affectionately called the DC Fly-In. That's where our friends from the Agricultural Retailers Association and the CPDA folks will all be on hand, and we'll be going to Capitol Hill, visiting with representatives, senators, and I believe we also have a visit to the EPA on tap as well. So, I know I'm looking forward to that event, but what can you share, Miss Amy?
oh, it'll be a great event. Um, I looked at the registration yesterday, and it looks like there's gonna be over 100 representative of ARA member companies. I know Richard and Hunter are busy setting up our hill visits, and who we're gonna visit on Tuesday, I believe we'll be on the hill. And there will be over 20 groups that will have over 100 meetings with representatives in Washington, D.C. So it will be an onslaught to get our voice heard on the Hill. It's always a fun event, and I look forward to it every year. Uh, we always on the end of the Hill visit days, we always have a shared reception on the Hill, and I believe TFI and CLA will also help us host that, along with several of the state associations, which I am pretty excited about, that we can kind of get the conversation of how federal affects the states and how the states affect federal. And so I think that's we've been kind of separated in policy in the past, and I think that this is a good step forward to really show that they are connected to each other.
Yeah, so that'll be on March 3rd through the 5th in Washington, DC, and of course, as I said, Amy and I will both be there, and with fingers crossed that we can find a moment of time, we can maybe stand next to each other and have someone record us talking about our impressions from our meetings on the Hill and what we found out at EPA. Again, given some of the things we're watching in this video, I know that there's a lot of eyes on EPA and what they could maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, approve in the not too distant future that could help out the grower community when it comes to dealing with weed resistance, insect problems, diseases, et cetera, and so on. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Sounds like a great thing to look forward to.
Yes, yes. So one other thing to bring up, of course, I know you and I, besides attending the fly-in, we also regularly go to our annual Tech Hub Live event, which takes place in July, and this year will be in Des Moines, Iowa, as it's been for the last couple of years. And I believe the registration for that is now open. So, folks, if you're interested in attending Tech Hub Live or finding out more, And of course, yes, one of the things that takes place at Tech Hub Live, women in ag tech. I know that is a very important part of that meeting. And I know, Amy, you've gone to that for a couple of years now. So, folks, if you're interested, we'll put the website up on the screen so you can check it out for yourself. But, Amy, last impression or any impressions on what this year's meeting might hold for us?
No, I think, it's still in kind of the planning stages for some of the speakers. We're still trying to, get them all firmed up, but I think we're gonna have several different instead of trying to hit one big audience, I think they're talking about several different veins. So there may be a vein of speakers for the growers, and there may be a vein of speakers for the tech companies, and there may be a vein of speakers for the retailers that are there. So, um I'm looking forward to some more content that is more specific to each of the groups that attend Tech Hub Live. So, again, something to look forward to.
All right. Well, yes, we have the theme for the episode, things to watch. So, viewers, we hope you enjoyed this edition of Crop Life Retail Week, and we'll keep an eye on all the things we have hinted at that need to be watched. Of course, other things will be coming up, and that's what we'll be giving to you on future episodes. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed this edition of Crop Life Retail Week. Amy, Asmus, thank you again for joining us. And viewers, we will see you again next week. If you have questions or feedback about today's episode of Retail Week, you can contact us by email or on X, or share your thoughts in the comments section below. We value your input and will do our best to address it in next week's episode. And be sure to subscribe.